Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, Agency Transformation Coach and founder of Niche in Control, author of The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom, and the creator of Leverage for Growth. I'm the host of the Leverage for Growth podcast, and I know that in order for you to scale your agency successfully, there are multiple shifts that need to happen within your mindset, skill set, and leadership style. I am on a mission to interview marketing and PR agency owners on their journey to 6, 7, and 8 figures and leverage the lessons from their journey to save you time, energy, and money to get your agency to the next level. If you find value in these episodes, watch the case study video to learn more about Leverage for Growth and how we successfully scale agencies at nicheincontrol.com/case study. That is nicheincontrol.com/case study. You are now listening to Leverage for Growth. Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, founder of Niche in Control and creator of Leverage for Growth. Welcome to the Agency Leverage Edition. Today I am here with Brett Linnenkohl, the founder of Evergreen Strategic Systems, a done-for-you systems agency helping agency teams to build and implement operational systems that capture that tribal knowledge so the team can run the day-to-day. Thanks for coming to our show today, Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. And as we get started, I just want to say to you, thanks for having me on, and also how we met. Just thanks for your incredible wisdom and advice. We've known each other very shortly, but already I feel like you made an impact on my life. So yeah, thanks for that, and glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our first call, we talked a little bit about your history leading up to the agency. So can you tell us a little bit about the history and background of your agency?
Yeah. So in my 20s, I was always gung-ho about being an entrepreneur, right? And the traditional life path, it just didn't really appeal to me. So right after college, I was a baseball player. And I started just doing some lessons. During grad school, I happened to go to Hopkins. I did counseling. And I thought that was going to be my path. I'll work with kids. I'm good with them. And I saw a practice and I was like, well, I played ball. Let me go play with them. One thing led to another. I started doing these camps and I would rent out facilities and I had an email list. So I would, just fill them up, and it turned into this year-round thing. So it was a really cool little baseball business. And ran it for about 9 years, had a lot of success with it, but I hit a ceiling. That was one side of it. I only had so much location, that I could actually grow in person there. And two, COVID happened. So no one wanted to send their kids to camps. And I got pretty slammed there. It was like spring, obviously, when COVID hit. Our summer was 70% of our revenue. And yeah, so a lot of refund. It was crazy. So I was like, all right, screw this. I'm out. Moved over to where we're at now in Charlotte. And I happen to have a buddy. He was a digital agency owner. He's brilliant. He's a genius. You should probably have him on here too. Really good guy. And as much as he could grow, he was insane with his marketing, but he'd always get hung up with wanting to do new stuff and projects. He would put on a new project with his team and everything would fall apart on the back end. The systems would just drop and he just kept complaining about it. So I was like, well, hey man, I'm free. Let me pop in. And side note, that was really my superpower. When I grew the baseball business, I had it down to 1 hour a week. I had the key team that would come in. We'd have one meeting and then I would deploy them and everything else would run. When I say 1 hour, obviously I was doing more, but it was stuff I wanted to do. So long and short, hopped in his company within 3 months. We had systemized it, sent him on vacation. The business was still running. And in another 3 months, when he got back, right, we were right on pace, doubled his business after that. He referred me, they referred me. Long and short, that's kind of how I got in the agency world. And I've been doing that ever since. So as a fractional COO, so that's kind of my story. That's how I got here.
Awesome. And it's kind of funny how you focus on kind of like your superpower and then people tell other people and it kind of snowballs. What percentage of your business is agency owners right now?
Yeah, I would say 85% have been agencies. It is just like they're in the networks, they know each other, so they hand you off and then you get good at that one thing. So yeah, agencies, I've gotten my head pretty good. You always start with onboarding. So the number of onboardings that we've overhauled for agencies, it's like I could do it in my sleep. But yeah, always interesting, and every business needs systems. So So yeah, it's been a fun journey. A lot of agencies I've worked with, I'll say that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And as you work with agencies, let's kind of walk through a bit more about some of the problems you talked about. That your friend that you had done the agency's systems for, that they kind of like they couldn't get away from the operations without things breaking. What are some of the things that you find when you talk with agencies that are kind of like the biggest pain problems that kind of gravitate towards operational systems being the thing?
Yeah, no, great question. And I know you know this. So reading your book, and it was just funny because our convo, you're like, Brett, that sounds like an early me, and that was where you gave me such good wisdom and advice. Of course, I come to page, I think it was at least in the version I had, it was like page 70. You talk about flow charts and
Mm-hmm.
processes, and I'm like, oh no, he really means it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when I go into businesses, I think of myself as a surgeon. You have to really understand the layout. They're all the same, but they're all so different. The nomenclature, the people, the systems that is set up, the background, the culture. I mean, so you really have to understand everything. You got to ask questions, and then we use those right to make a map and know where we got to make the cuts. And I would really, I say that because the problems that I see in agencies, they're down to the hidden bottlenecks, right? They're the things that they're hidden, like the owner, they can't see them, or if they know about them, it goes deeper than what they know. That's why laying it out visually, having them see it and see like this doesn't connect to that, that's one part of it. But especially the team, right? The team, they know things, but they don't necessarily want to tell you, right? As the owner, their job depends on making sure things run. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it in the hidden bottlenecks. I would say 3 things out of 20, the top 3 things that I find. The hidden bottleneck, one is the owner, everything's in their head, or majority is in their head, and the little gaps make it so the team can't take over. So they're always stuck. Number 2, I would say it's the tribal knowledge of the team. Tribal in the sense of self-preservation, tribal in the sense of telephone by the campfire, right? And drama. And that can really cause problems when someone else has a little piece of info or they're not sharing. That's 2. Yeah. And then 3 is just aligning to an actual process. So many people are winging it. And so by laying those things out and aligning the team to say, this is it, right? Is this the decision?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that like you got to get it to where it's tight. And I'm already stepping into solutions, right? But I think those are the 3 biggest bottlenecks that
Mm-hmm.
typically we
Mm-hmm.
solve or start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times, at least in my experience, and maybe you're in the same boat, but a lot of times marketing agency owners, they kind of wait and delay on operational systems. It's like the thing that they avoid like the plague.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
something
I know.
random, really big happens that they're like, oh my gosh, I really need it. And I know early kind of warning signs is something that I usually talk about in podcasts where we're trying to get like, hey, before it actually becomes a big issue, here's a couple things. Is there any kind of like early warning signs that you kind of want to like bring to the
Yeah.
audience?
No, it's a great point. Well, it's hard because like the stuff that you and I are good at in that sense, right? And again, like Jesse, you're good at everything. When I read your book and the growth systems you do, it's like, oh yeah, he's been doing this a while. Yeah, but like from my side, it's I don't know, the hidden part. It's like when you see a building, you see the outside of it. It's this pretty building, but you don't see the metal rafters that have to be there. And a lot of people, or maybe young, they might say, well, the building is just there. There's some cement around it. Um, but really you have to like, they're necessary things. So early warning signs, sure. Like, I don't know, but like you said, it's so funny because people can just overlook it. You get to 6 figures and you're like, well, we'll deal with that when we get to 7. Right now, let's focus. Okay, you get to 7, we'll deal with that when we get to 8. But they're towing this incredibly heavy boulder and not even realizing, right? They're walking in water. They could have gotten there faster. They could have been on more vacations because of it. Their team could have taken more. And eventually it catches up to you, right? So I think it comes down to the decision of the agency owner. Do you want to make it easy or do you want to make it hard? I think that's one part of the decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Just to riff on that a little bit, I think there is a transition point when you are just starting off an agency to get to 6 figures. You're kind of just doing whatever is possible, to get through the proof of concept, for whatever possible to figure out what those core services are. And the journey between 6 and 7 is actually a journey of the agency owner switching roles from being the subject matter expert to more of a trainer, to all of a sudden a manager, to more of a leader. And it's like, and the only way of making that transition is actually through systems. And I think one of the things that I find, at least in the market, and you might find this as well, is that a lot of times agency owners actually have their strategy backwards, or they're so focused around generating new clients as opposed to just retaining the ones that they have. And instead of focusing on kind of like that internal structure, like the pole in the wall, like you were talking about a second ago, they're so focused around like the outside and what it looks like, you know? So I think, the strategy is just backwards.
Yeah, I think so. And ultimately, I think it all catches up no matter what, right? Because if you look at a timeline of someone, eventually it's going to catch up with you, right? If you focus on just acquisition, you're going to lose, people, it's going to drop off, and it's going to be a lot harder of a ride. So I totally agree. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. I know this is supposed to be about your journey as well, but I know the operational systems is actually such a key part of the journey that a lot of agency owners are on, and people that are listening right now are most likely going, do I have those early warning signs, and do I need to focus on the operational systems or chasing new clients? And I think that it is really just important to have it where fulfillment is good, systemize as much as possible, figure out what's working, what's not working, be able to get help is another big thing. And I think we have similarities in certain ways, but obviously I serve in a different way, where if someone is not able to kind of like be taught how to fish and then build the systems, but they need somebody that can kind of implement those, that's where you step in. And I think that's really important,
No, yeah. Well, and that is something coming in and preparing of like, well, what is the difference and how is it, working together? And I think your program, I've seen a lot of programs like yours, undoubtedly with the info you put out, it's one of the best at taking the strategy and showing someone holistically in an agency how to get from here to here smoothly, and definitively, right? Like getting the results. You've helped so many people. For mine, I feel like it's funny the combo you brought up, because those that skip that step, the ones that are really good marketers, love the sales side, and they just like, well, we're just going to skip the bones and we'll figure it out. And it's caught up to them. That's the ones I do really well with, right? I like to put them in the lazy genius category, right? The creative genius. They're trying to skip levels, but so yeah, that's where I come in and do it for you, right? Lay those bones for you, make it really clear. So yeah, I think that's kind of where they both synergize, is me catching them up so you can take them on and above.
Yeah. And if someone's listening to this, so going back to the audience, and let's just say they're not looking for support, but they at least need some type of key action things that they could do. They could take this podcast and go, okay, if I was to do it myself without any help, what are maybe like 3 main things that I could do today or this week, either with myself or my team, to help me build those operational systems? What are some of the things that kind of come to mind for you?
Yeah. For me, it's very, very clear. So it goes back kind of to my main philosophy, right? In operations. So end goal is get you out, right? Get the business owner out to use their superpower to strategize and skill and grow. So how you do that is making sure your processes are very clear, they're binary, they're objective, and then you have a team and everyone has a role to execute those processes. And that's how you align. So I'm a big proponent in this way, something that I think is missing from a lot of owners in the agency world. One is the team meeting structures. There's an agenda. And again, you lay it out so well. So I think that's one, but making sure you're structured. There shouldn't be a meeting where there's a lot of downtime, right? Yes. So that's one. 2 is one that's really close to my heart. A general, an engineer, a quarterback. What do they all have in common? They have a visual. They have some kind of playbook that they align their team around, and they use it. They practice it so everyone knows what they're doing, what the central place is. I think we're missing that in the agency world. That's been the main tool of solving problems that I use, because everyone can see it. They can understand it. You get that mental check mark. So I think that's a big one. Using flowcharts, again, that you lay out in your book, that we have our own process doing. I just don't think you can take it away. So that's two, little extra effort, long way of help. And then, yeah, number three could go a lot of different ways. I think at that point, it's just focusing back on sales. Yeah, I think it's easy to get in the ops. I would just say go back into sales and apply it that way too. Because yeah, do you find that too, Jesse? People, when they do get the operations bug and they focus on it, then they like throw the sales out the window. I find that happens more often than not. And that
Yeah, I
causes
think
different problems. Yeah.
yeah, what's really interesting, especially with operational systems, is well. First off, let me go back to your three talks. You talked about the meeting structure, super
Mhm.
important. I think a lot of times what agency owners kind of get stuck on is they think that every meeting is a waste of time, and so they minimize meetings as much as humanly possible. And if you actually study the CEOs of great companies, you'll actually realize that all they're doing is just trying to make sure that they communicate effectively and the information doesn't go into silos. So the former CEO of LinkedIn, for an example, they had every single day dedicated to a certain theme. And if someone came to, I think his name was John, or I'm gonna butcher it. Anyway, the LinkedIn guy, and he like on Mondays it was about leadership, so he was talking all about leadership and teams, leadership and so forth. If someone came to him with a question that was outside of his theme, he would just be like, "Talk to me on Wednesday." And what he was doing was he was bucketing all these very specific themes, and he would just dominate them. Same exact thing when it comes to like meeting structures. You want to have the agenda, you want to have a purpose with them, and you want to make sure that it achieves that purpose. And what it actually does, that meeting structure that you're talking about, it minimizes ad hoc meetings, which minimizes task switching, which actually increases the actual output. And so,
Yeah,
uh,
and it saves you more time. That is the ironic part. You're right. It's like if you actually do the meetings up front, it actually saves you time later because you're not getting all these little fires. They have all they need. So
mhm,
100%.
mhm.
Mm.
And one of my favorite words in operational systems is the reduction of rework. Like once I figured out what rework was, where you have to keep on doing the same thing because you did it wrong the first time, and you're like, crap. Like, I
Yeah.
find that a lot is one of the benefits of building the
Yeah.
systems too.
Truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that it really drives me, man. That kind of stuff. How can we save time? Right? A lot of
Mhm.
times I wish my superpower was making a lot of money, like a lot of you watching the visionary type. Like truly
Mhm.
that would be nice. But yeah, this stuff just drives me, man. It's crazy how that
Mhm.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second one you talked about was the visual component. I think that's really important because I think one of the other things that agency owners do wrong is they'll run to SOPs. They hear all the time, they're like, "Oh, I got to build SOPs." And when we were talking in the last call, you were like, it's like building the branches without understanding the tree, or I don't know how you phrase that, but
Oh yeah. Well, no, that one's actually really close to my heart. Yeah, it's yeah, SOPs to me is like data. It's like solving problems with algebra, and that can get
mhm,
really long and those big whiteboards with a lot of numbers. But what was his name? Was it I can't remember the mathematician that made the XY axis, but they figured,
mm,
right, you can have an equation and plug numbers in and see it in shapes and see it in the world, and then you can
mhm,
visually, and that's solving with geometry. That's what that is. It's a
mhm,
whole new way to solve problems and see problems you didn't
mhm,
know you even had. That's why I love it. Yeah,
mhm.
thanks for reminding me of that. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the actionable things I would suggest anybody that is listening to this conversation and wants to take something away from it is being able to actually focus on that visual component first before going into the SOPs is really important. Part of that is because if you go after the SOPs without understanding the workflow, a lot of times you're actually creating your own rework because you're going, "Oh crap! Like I didn't know a beginning and an end to whatever I'm creating," and then that's why people will spend months, years building operational systems when in actuality you just need to do it right the first time. So building
Jesse,
that
I
workflow is
just have
first
to
thing.
stop there though and just say, truly, man, there's no one else who understand. Like when I read that in your book, I was like, dang, like he really like no one else talks about this and has that perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
no, it's just cool. Like anyone watching at home, thanks for saying on me, but like Jesse, whoa, like blowing my mind again. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've realized and that goes really hand in hand is that the systems are inevitable. You have to create them at some point. Whether
Mm.
you're doing it yourself, you're reading all the books, using ChatGPT to figure out what the hell you're doing, or doing research or whatever, or you find somebody that you're like, you could be given kind of roadmap and different guides, and you just follow that, and then you get feedback on that. That could be a thing. Or if you get to a place where you're just like, dude, this is totally not me, and I need somebody to help me with this thing. Then they go to you, and you just build it, and then in 90 days they have the operational systems. It is totally worth it, because no matter what, there's always a need for operational systems to be solidified. And when my clients get to a place where they're on the other side of operational systems, they're like, oh, sweet, I don't have to worry about all that other crap that I was dealing with before. And now I can focus on growth. And that's where a lot of our case studies come from. So, yeah, I think people avoid it, and they have to realize, I think this is the biggest kind of like key lesson for anybody that's listening, is that operational systems are inevitable to build. You can't get around it. You can't avoid it unless you want to stay really, really, really small. And so, I could go on a rant for a long time, but
no, it's true. And, what comes back to me is the question you did ask that I don't think I addressed head on, but I do think is critical for any listener that like this is speaking to you. You asked, what are the signs, right? What do they feel? And I jump over that question because I hear it so much. To me, it's like trivial, so, when you're in a place and, you're like, well, everyone knows that. But this is when you're feeling antsy. You can't sleep. You wake up in the middle of the night. That's what the systems are, right? Did I forget this? Like leaving the garage door open, Home Alone type thinking, but in your business. And it's also like when you think you have, like, I've explained this to my team. Why aren't they doing it? That's you. That's the operations. That's the systems. It's not clear what they're following. I don't know. Any other things you can think of off the top of your head too that are signs?
Yeah, when you hire somebody and you have to do job shadowing.
Oh yeah. Why?
Yeah. And like, they're like, the only way I got to train this person is if they're looking over my shoulder. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they're like, oh, I got to rush to hire. Okay, have you built systems yet? What do you mean by systems? Well, what kind of environment are they coming into? Oh, well, I'll just teach them. Like, what the hell are you doing? You build the systems first, then you hire. And there's so many different reasons on why you do that. But I think a lot of times people hear the saying, hire when it hurts, which is totally true. But you only hire when it hurts when you've already tried to build the systems, build the processes, and so forth. And I think just a lot of people rush to, oh, I need a body. When in actuality, you're just going to spend a crap ton of time either micromanaging them, training them for too long, and so forth. And so I think just having things in the right order makes
the saddest
really
part
big
about
difference.
that kills me too is they'll do exactly as you said. They'll shadow them, and guess what happens half the time? Then that person leaves in 3 months. All that work you've done is for naught. That is the worst part of that situation. And the amount of times it's maddening, man. That's brutal. But anyway, I'm sure we could go all day, Jay. Like of horror stories. So yeah, if you're feeling any of those, like legitimately, there is a way out. You don't have to suffer through it all. It's not part of business. Like I even thought this early on. Oh, it's just part of the grind, and I'm just going to push through it. You really don't have to. You really don't. Anyway, off our pulpits, right?
Yeah. Well, anybody that's listening right now, if you are experiencing anything that we've talked about so far and you're looking for some type of support, Brett, if they're looking for systems implementation, what's the best way of getting in touch with you, or, how do they move forward?
Yeah. So my website, evergreenstrategicsystems.com, you can check it out. I work best with, again, that lazy genius or creative genius type people that just love the creative. And you're like, I don't want any part. I want the speed run. I want the Mario flute, right? To just skip ahead. We do a 90-day sprints, usually doesn't take 90 days. 90-day sprints. It's very paced. The way I explain too, doing this stuff, it's like, you're driving on a highway, you're trying to change a tire, right? So you can't just be like, hey, we're going to get done in a week. It doesn't work like that. You got to work out the problems. But yeah, that's how we attack it. So if you're at home and you're like, okay, just got to knock this out in a quarter, reach out. And for being on here, just mention you were on the show, and I usually have a couple spots that I can work with people depending on what level they're at. So can definitely work with you and make it reasonable. And I would ping back, Jesse, if anyone comes on and I get them set, they'll be at again, it's page 70 or page 80 in your book, and you'll be ready to grow, and we'll throw them right back into yeah, your system. And as long as they do a case study, I think that has to be the deal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love those
yeah.
case studies. That's cute.
Yeah. Well, they work, right? Yeah.
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 Cool. Well,
Yeah.
well, awesome, guys. And for anybody that wants to connect with Brett, I'll leave the links to connect with him in the show notes. And Brett, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, truly, Jesse. Again, and you don't know, I think, how much you change other people's lives, but again, I can testament. I've known you now for at least 90 total minutes of our lives, and just the things you say, very insightful. So, yeah, really appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on, and hope that I got to pay it back to somebody out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Agency owners, if you want to transform your agency to sustain and grow without your direct involvement, where you can stop working in the business and start working on the business, where you can free up your time, delegate work more effectively, price and position your services to finally get paid for what you're worth, and have the team run the day-to-day, go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now to learn more about leverage for growth. And also to book a free strategy session with us. We'll look at your systems, determine exactly what you need to do in order for you to scale this year, and to create a strategic plan so that you can live the life of entrepreneurship you've always dreamed about. Go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now.